We're going to kick off the meeting. Welcome, everyone. My name is Craig Leday. I'm one of the partners here at ICG Next. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy day to spend a little bit of time with us to learn a little bit about long-term care and how advisors and how we think about how do we want to manage that elder care expense as we all get older. It is a reality. And so we'll share a little bit about how we think about it and what are some of the options and opportunities that are out there that one should consider. As always, on behalf of Michael and James as well, I want to thank Deb for organizing and coordinating everything. I can't believe this is going to be our last Zoom presentation for the year. But on behalf of the entire team, Deb, thank you so much for everything that you do. Obviously, these events would not be able to take place if it wasn't for you and organizing everything. So we do greatly appreciate that. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about long-term care. Before I introduce Dennis, I just want to kind of share with you a little bit about, my experience over the 30 plus years of being in the industry. Elder care expense and elder care issues have been and always will be there. The question that one always has to ask, and working with hundreds of clients, everyone has to deal with it. It's an unpleasant situation, but here's what I will tell you. It's much better to deal with the situation when you don't have the situation and plan for it than trying to figure out what you're going to do when you're in the middle of the situation, if that makes sense. It's a very emotional issue. It's challenging, but working with your financial advisors to make you aware of what fits best for you. Because many times people always ask us, what's the best thing? And there is no best thing. It's what's right for you and how do you want to manage that risk. And, many people think that there's a lot of different choices that are out there. There's a handful of choices. One, there's communities that you can sell your house and you can buy into, and they're progressive care facilities that start off at independent living and go all the way to care until one passes, and that's a viable option. And there's a pros and cons associated with that. Obviously, there's the traditional long-term care insurance where you buy your coverage, a certain daily benefit, and you have it. And the challenge with most individuals is that they'll say, well, Craig, what happens if I don't use it? Well, honestly, we celebrate that you don't use it. That means you didn't need that care. It's much like your automobile insurance or your homeowners. You don't get upset if you don't use it. But for some reason, with long-term care, there's an emotional attachment. Well, what about I'm paying all this money and I don't use it? And so the industry has changed quite a bit. And there's also now opportunities where individuals can buy annuities that have long-term care opportunities that are aligned with that provide some tax benefits. And then obviously life insurance policies that have accelerated benefits that can be used for elder care expenses and things in that nature. So there's a handful of things that you can choose. And what I would encourage you to think about is not what's the best, but what's the best for you. Because they all have pros and cons. They all have trade-offs. And unfortunately, none of us have the crystal ball and know what the outcome is going to be for you. So you have to kind of figure out what you feel most comfortable with. But I will also tell you, most individuals I run across early on, especially when we start working together, their plan is that they're going to pay for everything because they haven't addressed it. You remember, if you haven't put together a long-term care plan, the default is you pay for 100% of the cost. And for some individuals, they may be in the financial position to be able to do that. For other individuals, they might not be able to do that. As a financial practitioner, one of the reasons why we get involved in this issue is because when something happens, your family members come to us and they say, what did you decide? How did you plan on addressing this? And we need to know what your wishes are, because in many instances, we're going to be your representative to talk to your family on how you want to manage this risk that obviously we all eventually have to deal with. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's something that we have to deal with. But what I will tell you, When you certainly don't want to deal with it when emotion's high, when individuals when health is deteriorating. The time to do it is when you're healthy, you're clear thinking, you're looking at your finances, you're weighing the pros and cons because every solution has a pro and con. There isn't a perfect solution. And so what we wanted to do today is bring in Dennis O'Connor. Dennis is a partner of ours. He works for Global DI. It's a firm located in New Jersey, Hazlet, New Jersey. Dennis has been in the industry over 10 plus years, working in the health arena, long-term care arena, disability arena, and working with individuals, financial advisors, and clients to help them select the type of plan that's best suited for that individual. So Dennis, welcome and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend a little time with us here at ICG Next.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So Dennis, give us a little bit of insight. What's trending in the long-term care industry? What are some of the things that we need to be aware of? Tell us a little bit about how you're addressing these issues of elder care expenses and elder care challenges with your clients and with financial practitioners around the state.
Sure. So I was telling Dad before the call started, I've sort of been involved in the LTC marketplace for really almost 25 years. I was lucky enough, my dad started a business when I was in high school, and my high school job was working with long-term care insurance, which was absolutely riveting at 13 years old. But in that time, the marketplace and the offerings as a whole have really changed quite a bit. And there's kind of a statistical reason for that. These products first came into the marketplace in the late 80s, and realistically, the carriers were like, okay, we know we have this risk. We know people are going to want to address it in some way. We're going to take a couple guesses on how these things are going to go. And so they had certain assumptions on how long people would be on claim, how much claims would cost, how long people would hold on to these policies. And what they assumed and then what they started to realize in actual claims data ended up being pretty far apart from each other. Uh, Claim costs were significantly higher than they thought they were going to be. People held on to these for a lot longer than they thought they would. Uh, the average length of claim was longer. And so, with that, there's a real shift that happened the last 10 years where the costs of care in general have gone up quite a bit. The amount of facilities and places available have gone up. And a lot of carriers said, well, we've made some mistakes here and we're going to kind of cut our losses and not really offer anything. So it's a combination of both cost going up and then offering going down that has really distilled the way to cover the benefits. But it's really more important than ever to address it because the costs now are really getting to a point where it's almost uninsurable for the entire amount. And now you're leveraging insurance as a part of the whole and to help the people that you are providing the care for you, whether it be family members, your children, your spouse, friends and family, whoever that is. It's looking at it from a holistic approach, as well as just financial.
So Dennis, tell me a little about what are some of the solutions that that are becoming popular in today's world now that the long-term care industry has been going through this evolution.
Yep. So before we get into the options, I just want to touch on, just so everyone's on the same page, for what long-term care is. Long-term care, with regards to at least the insurance for it, is any care provided in a scenario, whether it be home or in some sort of facility, where you need help with the daily functions of life. For long-term care insurance specifically, the qualifications are either the inability to do 2 of 6 of the activities of daily living or a cognitive impairment. In terms of activities of daily living, you have bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, eating, and continence. And I can tell you, working with my father, his biggest joke for the longest time was that I personally already was down 2 of the 6 in eating and bathing. He still tries that joke now, even though I'm near 40. But those are the way you get into the ADLs, and then cognitive impairment would be anything like dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that. So once you've satisfied 2 of those ADLs or had cognitive impairment, you're considered claim eligible, and you're now going to get covered for care in these facilities. The care can be administered either at home or in facilities. I will tell you that at home, there's a couple hoops to jump through. Some of the options, which I'll get into in a minute, require licensed caregiving as opposed to informal caregiving. So you won't get your benefit if it's your wife helping you. You need to use a licensed caregiver. And as you can imagine, anything that requires licensing and formal care is going to be a little bit more expensive. But for really both scenarios now, the cost of care at home from a care provider is roughly $20 to $30 an hour on the kind of median aspect. And for facilities in the state of New Jersey, your median shared cost for a nursing home is about $9,000 a month. I will tell you, in our particular area, being kind of the Jersey Shore and then more towards North Jersey into the city, that number is significantly higher. It's probably more towards 10 to 15,000 a month for a decent facility. So the way to get into covering these is there's really 3 options that exist in the marketplace, and 2 are really a little bit more pertinent than the third. But as Craig mentioned, there is traditional long-term care coverage. There are what we refer to as hybrid or linked benefit plans, and then life with a long-term care rider. Generally speaking, most people start looking at long-term care coverage for themselves as young as 40 and as old as 75. But for the most part, most of the clients we end up seeing are between 55 and 70. And because of that, the life with the long-term care rider option generally doesn't make very much sense, only because you have to purchase a fairly substantial amount of life insurance, and a large amount of life insurance in your 60s is pretty expensive. Where life with LTC rider really shines is if you're a younger client, or if you have kids of your own that are in their 30s and 40s that have a long life insurance need. When they're purchasing that life insurance, throwing on a rider that allows you to accelerate the benefit towards long-term care is generally very inexpensive, and it's a great time to utilize that. But for what I would assume is most of the people on this call, but certainly any client between 45 and 70, you're really deciding between traditional long-term care and hybrids. Traditional coverage is your best return on investment dollar for dollar possible. There is not very many options in that space. That's where it was the biggest initially. And then a lot of carriers that offered it more as a secondary line to their more prominent lines of business have kind of pulled out. So the real carrier now in traditional is Mutual of Omaha. Um, there was a time where plans for the traditional side were significantly cheaper than the linked benefit plans. However, now those 2 plans have gotten much closer. But your traditional benefit plans offer a certain amount of benefit for a certain duration of time, and usually include some sort of inflationary protection to keep your benefit growing with the pace of inflation. Um, Currently, the maximum amount of benefit you can get on a monthly basis to start is $10,000 a month. So as I mentioned earlier, you can't get enough coverage from an issue perspective from these carriers to cover the cost of some of these higher end nursing homes and care facilities now. It just gives you an idea of where both the company's risk appetite is and the cost for care is. But $10,000 a month, the longest duration of benefit you can get is 5 years, and you have the choice between 3% compounding and 5% compounding inflation. From a actuarial perspective and a cost perspective, 5% compounding is really kind of not a viable option anymore financially. They can't legally not offer it from a US law perspective. They're forced and required to offer that. However, the carriers know that there's a lot of risk involved with that. So they've priced it as such that although it's available, it really doesn't ever come into play. The downside, as Craig mentioned, to the traditional side of things is although it's the best dollar for dollar return, should you need care, there is the aspect of paying into it for 20 to 30 years. Right now, the average age of claim for long-term care is 82, 83 years old. And your ideal purchasing window for long-term care insurance is between 50 and 60. So this is something that you're going to pay into for 20 years. Now, I mentioned to Deb earlier, but it's something that if you look at the cost of care and the benefit that you are entitled to should you need care, generally speaking, you're going to recoup all of your premium paid in within the first year, if not sooner. I know I can tell you my father's personal plan, which he got younger, but when he goes on claim, his benefit pays out at the age of average claim. It's going to pay out $18,000 a month in cash in benefit. And that's something that he'll recoup all of his premiums paid in within 5 months throughout the course of his life. So if you go on claim, you usually get your money's worth and then some very quickly. However, if you don't use it, you do lose it. The other piece of traditional that is a major drawback in my mind is that the benefits are paid on a reimbursement basis. And basically all that means is you have to incur the expense up front and then they'll pay you back for it. And where that comes into play the most is in the home care scenario. When you are at home on a reimbursement policy, you have to use licensed caregivers. So your dollar just doesn't quite stretch as far as it could. Um, the other offering we have is the linked benefit plans. And the linked benefit plans are, I think, now really the best overall offer in the marketplace. There are all of the features that make traditional LTC great in that there's the same sort of benefit amounts, same benefit durations, and most importantly, inflationary protection. However, you have the safety net of life insurance as well. So usually the way they're structured is you pay a certain amount of premium and it's a fixed amount. It can be paid in one premium payment, 5, 10 years, or 15 years, depending on how old you are. But you pick a certain number, and generally speaking, you will end up getting that premium back in some capacity, whether it be as a death benefit, long-term care, or some combination of both. However, should you need long-term care and should you need it for an extended period of time, it's structured in a way that it pays out the life insurance value first and then continues to pay additional benefit specifically for long-term care for as long as you need it up to the benefit duration maximum. The two big features about it that I think are the most important are because it's life insurance, the price on it cannot change. One of the biggest downsides to the traditional side of things, and something you'll probably see if you do any sort of research on your own about long-term care insurance, is that traditional long-term care, the pricing is not guaranteed. And the carrier can request of the state that the policy is issued in increases to the premium costs. And like I said earlier, they didn't necessarily know how to price this initially. So we've seen a significant amount of rate increase action over legacy business, meaning business written in the 90s and early 2000s, over the course of the last 10 or so years. I would say that traditional now, the actuarial ceilings and floors in terms of what they expect for certain risk parameters are a lot more realistic and a lot more conservative. So I wouldn't expect 50 to 100% rate increases like you've seen in some of the legacy business. But on the hybrid side of things, that price is fixed. It cannot change by law. The other thing about the hybrid side that I think is the most important piece is that most of the hybrid or linked benefit offers pay out in cash indemnity. And all that means is once you are claim eligible, if your benefit amount is $10,000 per month, you will get a check every month for $10,000. Whether or not you use that full amount, it doesn't matter. You'll still get that amount. And where that comes into play when you look at an LTC claim in action and how it goes out in reality is, generally speaking, LTC claims go up in severity over time. When they initially start, they're not that care intensive. It's a couple days around the house. It's a gradual process that gets progressively worse. Why I like the cash piece is you're getting your money in terms of claim dollars out of the policy sooner. If your benefit amount was $10,000, your care needs to start were 5,000. You can take the excess benefit amount, set it aside so that as your claim progresses and as your demands for care increase, you have a sort of slush fund, if you will, that you can then tap into. That's just benefit amount you've already been paid out to cover some of those differences between what you're getting and what your costs are. In general, now, part of the conversation that I have quite often with clients about LTC is you're not necessarily getting LTC to cover all of the financial burden, but you're getting it to create what is effectively a stop loss of your own investments and your own money in terms of paying that out for care. But having long-term care insurance makes the claims and care process significantly easier for both yourself and whoever's caring for you. For the person who is getting care, having long-term care, I work with a lot of elder care attorneys being in this industry, and having coverage can be the difference between getting into a facility that you want to get into or having to settle for a facility that you just have to go with because it's your only option. A lot of times, these facilities have to have a certain amount of Medicaid beds by law, but there's no stipulation as to how you qualify those Medicaid patients. So, a lot of times, what these facilities like to do is have someone who is a long-term patient that they can transition into Medicaid once their funds and or long-term care insurance has been drained. Their mindset is we've gotten 3, 4, 5 years of full price, full cost out of this client. We're willing to transition them into Medicaid and accept Medicaid for them so we can hit our requirement and still have a more favorable financial outcome for the care facility. We've seen time and time again where facilities will take a potential patient because they have coverage in some capacity. Even if the cost of care for the facility is $10,000 a month and your benefit's only 6,000, if they know you have a long-term care policy that provides $6,000 a month for 36 months, then they're comfortable knowing we're going to get at least that amount for at least this long. We're much more comfortable taking on this patient than someone who's privately funded or on Medicaid or has any sort of financial background issues that they don't necessarily want to take. The other really big piece that I focus on now is what long-term care provides for the caregiver, whether it be your spouse, your kids, other family members. The burden of being a caregiver is really what drives most people to have the conversation with me in the first place around covering long-term care. From a purely financial perspective, it's extremely important. But to Craig's point, you're paying into this for a long time. It's sometimes hard to wrap your head around, and certainly hard to wrap your head around the idea that you could pay into this and lose it, unless you've been a caregiver. Most of the time, anyone who's gone through the caregiving process in any capacity is not coming to us with the conversation being, here's why you should consider long-term care. It's basically just, let's talk about your financial picture, where this fits in, what a comfortable amount is in terms of premium expenditure for coverage, and then what we can do inside of that to get you some sort of coverage and care concierge services, because being a caregiver is a very big ask, and they don't want to put that burden onto their spouse, kids, whoever it is. So when you get these long-term care policies, it's not just the premium that you get out of it. You also get a lot of care concierge services available from either the carrier level or in some cases, this third party care administrators that you can leverage as well, that really make the caregiving process significantly easier for whoever is forced to administer it. What you see with long-term care is not necessarily just the cost itself, but if you have multiple children, it's who's going to take care of mom or dad. Well, you guys aren't doing as much as I'm doing in terms of trying to help the care. But we don't want to make this decision because we're watching our inheritance drain by the day. Having these care concierge services allows someone to call up and say, hey, My mom just qualified for long-term care. We have no idea where to even start with this. What are some good facilities near us? What are some of our options? And you'll have someone that can walk them through. Here are 10 facilities within a 25-mile radius that are highly rated that we've dealt with. Here are the steps. Some of the third-party caregiving companies that we work with will go as far as administering the claim. So you don't even have to go to the carrier to get the claim started. They will be the ones to reach out on your behalf and make sure that you'll start the flow of money from the claims faster. Because a lot of what happens is, Deb brought it up earlier, there was a client that she knows of that's had coverage for almost 30, 40 years, and now is in a facility but isn't quite there and isn't getting care yet because they say that she's not claim eligible just yet. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the carrier doesn't necessarily want to pay out this benefit right away. They want to make sure that you're qualified. And most of the time, people, by both just good nature and from, pride, but not in a negative way, but pride in a positive way, they're like, oh, well, I need some help around the house, but I'm still okay. I'm still good. And the carrier will take that very literally. Then they will say, okay, well, then you don't qualify for claim. A lot of these companies that help administer the claim will actually not only just give you the care concierge in terms of helping coordinate everything, but they'll get the process started sooner. They know what questions to answer and how to answer them so that you become claim eligible sooner. And like I said earlier, with especially the hybrid side of things and the cash, it doesn't matter if you don't need full-time care right away. If you can get on claim and get on claim earlier, you can get the benefit payments started earlier, and you can start to build up that resource and that reserve cash to use once the need for care demands it. So that's kind of a brief outline of where everything is and some of the options. Craig, by all means, if you got any more questions, let me know. If not, we can open it up to questions from anybody.
Well, listen, Dennis, thank you so much. I thought today's presentation was really informative, and I really do appreciate the fact that you took time out of your day to share your information and expertise in this area. Once again, Deb, thank you for putting everything together. We really do appreciate it. And for our clients, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. This year was some ups and some downs, and we made it through. I can't believe this is our last Zoom of the year. We really do appreciate it. It's funny, we started these Zooms during COVID, and Deb and I would talk with one another, and we would probably have about 4 or 5 people participating in it, and now we've got over 20 plus people participating, so we're making progress. We're going to continue doing these Zooms next year. If you have some ideas, some topics that you would find interesting, and you think large groups of individuals will find interesting, please send an email to Deb, give her a call, let us know what are some of the things that are important to you, because we're always looking for topics to bring to each of you on a monthly basis. So we do have our next one scheduled for the 1st of January. We always kick off the year with a market outlook. We have our partners from MFS, and we're going to do a market outlook for 2026. That's going to be on a Monday evening, January 26, 2026. I can't believe we're saying 26. And it's a market outlook. It's going to be at 4 o'clock. So please attend. If you have a friend or a family member, someone who you think would benefit from these Zoom presentations, please let Deb know. We'll send them out a Zoom, an invite to get them on board. Also, if you don't keep your financial advisor a secret. We're going through, there's a lot of changes going on in the world. We're coming up to a new year. I think it's really a good time to sit down and, make sure you calculate your net worth, set your goals for 2026, update it into your financial plan, run the projections, do the what-if scenarios, look what are some of the things that you're going to do, whether you're going to make sure you have a really clearly well-defined elder care plan in place, but have those meaningful conversations about what's most important to you. I call it woody woofy. What do you want for yourself? Start thinking about what you want for yourself in 2026, have that meeting with your advisors. Let's get it down in your financial plan. You know, if there's trips and vacations, let's make sure that we know that we can access the money when you need it, and make sure we can protect it. And as your goals change, we certainly know the world's changing, taxes are changing, rules are changing. You know, it's always good to make sure that your financial plan is updated on a year in and year out basis to make sure that we're putting yourself in the best position to win as we continue to keep moving forward. So on behalf of Michael and James and the entire team at ICG Next, for all our clients and our friends, I want to thank you and have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll look forward to, hopefully, a prosperous 2026. Have a great day, everyone.